Today I'm excited to welcome Ella Hough, a dynamic leader in the world of Bitcoin student advocacy. Ella heads the Cornell Bitcoin Club and is the co-founder of the Bitcoin Students Network, helping to connect and empower the next generation of Bitcoin thinkers. Her academic journey has spanned AI, business, and information sciences, and she brings a unique global perspective, including time spent studying in China. We'll be diving into Bitcoin, the value of college today, her international experiences, and a whole lot more. I welcome Ella Hough in Time to Reassess. Ella Hough, welcome to the Great Reassessment Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Matthew. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so would you go ahead and just introduce yourself for us and like who you are and what you're dedicating yourself to now?
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, my name is Ella Hough. I am just 1 week longer. I'll be in school. I am graduating from college in about a week, where I have been able to study Bitcoin in a degree program called the Robert S. Harrison College Scholar Program. Also at school, I am a junior fellow at the Cornell Brooks Tech Policy Institute, where we are doing the first study looking at Bitcoin adoption and financial freedom. And then I also have now transitioned it over, but started and led the Cornell Bitcoin Club. And outside of my, campus Bitcoin activities, I also co-founded the Bitcoin Students Network with Arshmalu, and this is really, gets at how can we help students all over the world find and talk about Bitcoin in their local communities.
That's awesome. I also organize a little bit myself. I started some local meetups out here. And so, what has it been like recruiting younger college age students to sort of join these Bitcoin clubs?
It looks a little bit different all around the world. So the Students Network spans about 73 countries. And so just to kind of clarify, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a club in each of those countries, but that's just kind of the network piece. Where does it all span? And it looks a little different depending on the countries I was saying. But I think for the most part, it's like any college club. Like we're just curious about a topic. I define success with all of these. And when I talk to people who want to start one, that you just have a conversation that otherwise wouldn't happen. And so that can be you go on a walk or you have dinner together or whatever works in your schedule. You don't all have to be, like, for instance, I love to give credit to Bitpolito in Italy. They preceded the Bitcoin Students Network, and now they just had, like, a master's program approved at their university. So there's lots of different ways this club can look, and it's, really positioning Bitcoin as something that everyone can be interested in, taking it outside of just of the, computer science, finance realms that people normally consider it, hearing coin in the name and thinking it has something to do with blockchain and technology.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Um, so have I've been following you for a little while on social media and things like that, and you really try to reach Gen Z um, for Bitcoin. And I'm just wondering, where are you bullish on Gen Z, and where are you bearish?
In terms of adopting Bitcoin, or you mean just generally, outside of Bitcoin, or which realm
Yeah,
were you?
just I guess in understanding Bitcoin, adopting Bitcoin.
I was having this conversation earlier today. What does a Bitcoin standard look like, or how does it change the world? And so if you're thinking about adoption and Bitcoin, um, and what I've just found with the network thus far, generally the countries that are outside the US, outside of North America, the West, um, have much more interest in their clubs and their groups. I suppose you could classify those as more bullish, but really, I don't want to say, I think everyone is going to find it. It's just positioning Bitcoin in the narrative that resonates with them. But for some context, there was a club that we have, I believe it was in Kenya, and they held a God Bless Bitcoin screening, and they had around like 250 to 300 students come to that screening. I can't get, that many people to come to an event that I hold. And so I think, that's just incredibly helpful there, the kind of the uptake. I'm trying to think of a bearish reasoning, but I suppose it would only just lie if and people don't think for themselves. I think, Gen Z has a lot more power than they give themselves credit for. I think, and I felt this too. We have this narrative that, I have to check all these boxes only once I graduate college and I have a job and I've been working. Is my opinion really valid over, let's say, someone else who has more experience than me? Um, but I just hope people claim their ability to think and their agency. And if they do, nothing but optimism.
Yeah, that's really cool. The ability to think for yourself is huge. I work in a high school, and so I see a lot of teenagers, right? And so, like, even within a generation, there can be a lot of variance. I'm a millennial. I'm on the younger side of millennials, and so those who are in their mid 40s, lower 40s, there's even a bit of variance between us. And so, um, looking at 26-year-old Gen Zers and like 14-year-old Gen Zers in high school
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
um, I've just been struggling to like communicate Bitcoin to them. And it's hard to figure out like what works, what interests them about Bitcoin.
Mhm. And part of the challenge too is that, and I'm sure you're in high school, people just thinking about what am I going to do? It's like, well, what am I just interested in to begin with? I started probably a little bit earlier than the average person thinking about what do I want to study? What career do I want to have? But when you're talking about these younger generations, for starters, there's so much more information coming at us every day than ever before, and so you're navigating all of that. Um, and you also, you have other priorities on your time. School, homework. There's only so much you can take in, and so part of it, to like you're saying, is how can I distill or filter or try to direct in the most meaningful way for someone and let them you just need that first hook that they can latch onto and then go figure out which path they're really interested in. And also, it cannot be Bitcoin. Um, a lot of people, when I talk to them, kind of reiterate, like, you don't need to change your interest to be interested in Bitcoin. This does not need to become your only interest. Um, I think of Bitcoin. Ideally, it's almost a little bit like oxygen for younger generations. You don't think about it every second, every day, but it lets you breathe and show up in your life as you would wish to.
Yeah, that's really good. I think people, how do I want to say this? I think people often think that like you were saying, it has to all be Bitcoin, but there can be other ways which people get introduced to it. Some people like like reading books like 1984 or something like that, where they see this they're really they like freedom. They want to be free, and uh they see Bitcoin as freedom. Others, they like the technology side. They want to code, and there's that aspect. And everybody just has their own personal interests and what might appeal to them. So you're just about to graduate from college, which congratulations, by the way. One question I have is, what's a small change you think colleges can make to better prepare students for a Bitcoin future?
Well, I think we need to start a little bit um, lower than that. I don't the Bitcoin future piece of it. Well, my wish was that Bitcoin can be taught at colleges, that we can really, I think, to preface, a lot of us go to college and we learn about the past to think about the present and the future in. And, that's a problem that's just inherent in knowledge. It's got to be produced and, knowledge is a team sport. Like there's many people working on something. Um, but also a huge benefit of college is that you have all of these people that are all studying different things and asking questions, and there's opportunity for all of this kind of dialogue. And sometimes it's really hard for that to happen, for people to kind of balance the known with the unknown, because on the balance is that, do you need to learn knowledge? You can get a job, earn a skill, contribute, take care of yourself. But also, where do you people ask, well, what's the balance of me diving into the unknown with no certainty that there's any reward on it? Oh, well, what if I spend 4 years studying this thing that's irrelevant? And then what am I going to do? I need to take care of myself. And so, perhaps what colleges could do, it's just really like a question asking class almost. Like, how can we just think outside of assumptions that we have and norms that we hold? And how can we really communicate with people across disciplines about ideas and see what missed connections we aren't kind of perceiving? I took a class on creativity my freshman year of college, and it's probably been one of the most valuable classes that I've taken, and so I, might wish that every college, just like you have, like, a language requirement or some other, like, maybe there's, like, a creativity class requirement, because a lot of what a college is doing is it's giving you a tool, and then ideally that tool can be used in so many different ways. And so if there can be, some class that just you can keep using over and over again in your life, I think that would be helpful and could be in the format of a club or, um, I'm not really sure the correct way to package it, but some way to give more tools that are kind of multi-purpose would be helpful.
Yeah. Do you think um, college is getting more and more expensive, right? And a lot of people in high school right now are thinking, man, is it worth it? Is it worth it to spend all this money on on college? So and so can you share like who do you think college is for these days, and is it worth the investment? And if there's nuance, feel free to explain.
I don't think it's a one size fits all answer, especially because college looks so different around the world. Some, like the US, it's mainly 4 years. In Europe, a lot of them are 3 years. Also, there's ways like in Europe that it's much less expensive than, for instance, schools in the US are. And so it's hard to give one answer for every person's use case. Um, I do think there can be benefit in school. But before you go in, I would really urge people to couple things. Um, when I was in high school, I made, or maybe earlier, I made this spreadsheet with my parents about what job did I want to have, what's the average salary, what would my tax bracket, expenses, the whole thing. And I really wanted to be a history major. And so whatever age you are, if you're, in college, not yet in college, maybe do this exercise. And I think it'll help give you a real framework to make a decision because I like to approach things in as much of a grounded way as possible, with facts or structuring. And so I did this whole spreadsheet out and got to the end, and I had a huge, big negative number. Going to college to be a history major was just not going to work with, where I wanted to live, if I wanted to travel, all of that. I was going to basically get to my age of retirement and not really be able to retire. So that's step one. And then I realized, okay, what else am I interested? What other jobs are out there that I could do and also be able to take care of myself? Because at the end of the day, I think, or for my own life, I felt like I was not on this earth to serve myself. There was a bigger purpose, that there was a lot that I wanted to do. And, how can I take care of myself to do that? And so, anyways, I now joke I've sort of become a history major, but I started on the computer science and Chinese track. Um, so, step one, do the spreadsheet, see what it is, what it is it that you think you want to do right now in life. And it's probably going to change, and that's a good thing. Um, just map it out. How much is it going to cost? What is the numbers going to look like with loans, etc. And then I think you can make an informed decision, but also maybe what you want to do doesn't require a college degree. You can't really right now go to school for Bitcoin. I was able to, through an independent major program, basically make it on Bitcoin and study it so that I could prepare myself to enter the Bitcoin workforce. but really proof of work is real, and there's ways to do it without a college degree. And so I think it's just, I'm sorry to give kind of a non-definite answer, but you really have to have a conversation with yourself about, what do I want? What does this require? What financially makes sense? What are other options? There's a lot of like online schools, Sailor Academy. You can basically go on there and take classes in anything that you want. For myself, just the current time, our world isn't yet super accepting largely of people that don't have a college degree. And so I, made the decision for myself that I am going to finish school. There's also a lot of people here that I wanted to share Bitcoin with and things I wanted to do. And I've had research experience and get to work on this study that we're doing. And so I just, yeah, try to help yourself get as full a picture as possible. Sorry, a little bit of a long, undefined answer.
Well, I think that's wonderful advice.
Yeah.
It's just I think that there's so many kids coming through the public high school system.
Mhm.
And they're told they're really sort of conditioned to think, well, what am I going to do? I have to go to college.
Yeah.
And
I think we don't even think, we just consider it as like another check the box. Oh, this is what I have to do. We don't actually stop and think, what makes sense? And the word education actually has roots. It was intended to be more like um, not just a transfer of knowledge, like from one person to another, but more like an awakening of a human being. And this whole kind of individual at the center, how can we help them pursue knowledge and ideas, really isn't scalable. And so many more people are going to college, and it's gotten a lot more formalized. And so, maybe you go to a smaller school where you do, get more personalized attention and people that help you become a better writer, whatever it is. There's just so many variables at play, and it a little bit depends on the person. But I mean, I also think about like doctors. Like, we need people to go to medical school. We can't just kind of get rid of it totally.
yeah, I think if you don't know what you want to do, not a bad idea would be to just take 1 year
Work and
and
then figure it
and
out.
work and read as many books as you possibly can.
Yeah, yeah,
Just go to the public library, read books, find out what makes your soul like come alive,
yeah.
and find a way to monetize that. Like if you can work in there. Like there's a lot of people now who are creating their own jobs in a Bitcoin space that didn't
Mhm.
exist a couple of years ago. And so what you want to do, you might be able to create that job.
Yeah, exactly. And something I was told growing up is that normal is only a setting on like the washing machine or dryer. And so if you're, in high school, younger, in college, like, forget whatever is normally done or societally accepted. Think for yourself, think about your own timeline, and I think give yourself the grace to figure it out. But do still do the work. You still have to take steps and actions, but you get to choose.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I'm on your bio here on your website. It says that you were learning how to write Chinese characters and which code ethical actions to speakers. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so my junior year of high school, I did not speak Chinese. Never been to China, really didn't know anything. I decided to spend a year abroad in Beijing. And so when I landed, didn't even know hello. From that moment on, I lived with a host family. They pretty much only spoke Chinese. Our teachers, we had, like Chinese only days. They really only spoke to us in Chinese. So I had to learn pretty quickly. The first 100 days, I could give a 5-minute memorized speech. But I loved learning the language, and there is so much more to it than initially meets the eye. And one example that really showed me this and struck me is that of the character Xiaoxun. So my tones are not good, so it's not actually how you pronounce it. But our Chinese teacher wrote the character up on the whiteboard, and she said, okay, this is the word for one of the core tenets of Confucianism, and it's about the relationship between parent and child. And so we hadn't seen this character before. We didn't know anything. And she said, okay, only look at the top part. Like, we've taught this character. What is it? And it's the character for old. And then she said, okay, now only look at the bottom. And she was like, what is it? And it's the character for young or child. And so, what the construction of this character physically shows is the young supporting the old. And what the Confucian tenet, the relationship is that when you are young, your parents will take care of you. And when you grow up and your parents are um, elderly, you will take care of them. And so it's like, oh my gosh, there is this, natural, social, human language that visually kind of code ethics or a way of acting into their language. Now, simultaneously, I was taking this class on AI and I was really curious. There's, the whole ethics and AI conversation. And I was curious, can you, just like we can in normally what we consider a language in a computer language, code ethics or morals in it? And I've since taken classes. Really, I don't think so. Also, everyone has a different idea of what is right or wrong, so that further complicates it. But I think Bitcoin can help us with that. And I give a lot of credit to the initial thinking of this from Drew of Benzel, who co founded Unchained. And he has this panel, I think it was from Bitcoin Miami 2023, basically talking about the interaction between AI agents and humans and how, humans have all of the Bitcoin. And so how you can kind of reward the AI agent for ethical or unethical behavior based on that. So I wrote an article called like Exploring Random Thoughts When I Can't Sleep or something where I go a little bit deeper, but that's the gist.
That's interesting. Now, the young supporting the old. I mean, I agree. Like in an ideal world, that's how it should be. Your parents kind of take care of you when you're younger, and then when they're older, you support them. And people today are wondering, will I be able to afford that? And so Bitcoin can sort of help actually flesh that out and help people be able to do that, to be able to support their parents, not only to for them to retire, but hey, how can I support my parents in old age? And so I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I also think even earlier on, other people more wise than me kind of talk about how Bitcoin restores relationships and values. And, a lot, most young people aren't particularly close with their parents. A lot have to move away for a job or whatever it might be. But I think at the end of the day, Bitcoin really gives us choice and agency over how we spend our time and show up in our life. And so not only this idea of it makes it, financially feasible to support yourself, support others, um, but I also think it just changes sort of how the relationship dynamics evolve over life, perhaps. That's more a long time horizon, but I think that's an interesting consideration as well.
For sure. So what are your hopes and dreams when it comes to Bitcoin? I imagine you're stacking sats and saving. Do you have a long-term set of goals that you would like to pursue, and how does Bitcoin relate to those?
Yeah, I mean, I first was introduced to the concept of have you heard this? It's called a bag goal, BHAG, big, hairy,
Mm-mm.
audacious goal. So I think I was introduced to this concept because so I wasn't really allowed to watch when I was growing up, select shows, and one that I watched in sixth grade was Madam Secretary. And I decided that I really wanted to be Secretary of State. And then someone introduced to me, sixth grade Ella. Okay, that is a BHAG, like a bag goal. This huge thing that, seems unachievable. And then they said, but you need to break it down. What can you do along the way to kind of put yourself in the position? So, anyways, I think that is when I was really introduced to this whole idea of goal setting and what am I working towards rather than just kind of aimlessly going about life, and it's very okay and good if the goals change. But just some direction I think is helpful. It's tying to our earlier conversation about, well, what am I going to study? What am I really working for here? Um, and so I do have, big goals, which maybe will change and I'll find new ones along the way. But I hope that my career can be in the Bitcoin industry. Jeff Booth talks a lot about building the world that you want to see. Um, and the future is inherently uncertain, but I feel strongly that working in a framework or a path that I think really embodies my core values and allows me to kind of be the best human I can be is the path that I want to walk. And so, when I was looking at colleges and thinking about what job I want to have, my parents always told me this: the job you might have maybe hasn't even been created yet. The major I've now done at school didn't even exist when I was looking. And so, also leave room for some spontaneity and about what else could evolve and unfold. So I don't have an exact answer for you on um, what I will do or how my career will unfold, but I hope I can keep working for something that champions the values that Bitcoin does.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're into AI and all that. I have an AI question for you. Maybe you can. Do you think do you think robots will take over the world? And two, do you think AI will ever become a non-human enterprise where it's self-sustaining and it can take care of itself?
So when you say non-human, like it can have its own power contracts I mean, just sorry, well, I think I lost you for a sec.
Yeah, I can
I mean,
explain. So
no
at
theory
the
about super intelligence, no, that machines become, more knowledgeable than all of humanity combined.
at the base layer, a lot of these technologies still need humans on the other side of a computer to tell it what to
Mhm.
do, set
Yeah.
it in motion. Do you think it'll ever be like fully cyclical and then AI robots can decide for themselves what is needed and then it eliminates the need for human intervention? A lot of people are kind of worried about that.
See, I took a class this semester. It was like called AI, Law, Policy, and Politics. But we read this book, AI Snake Oil. And basically, kind of the name suggests kind of what is the AI hype that's out there. So, I mean, I'm personally always kind of very optimistic and I don't think you can really stop innovation and you shouldn't. So I have no idea exactly what it will look like, but I really think there's nothing like a human. And I think the best combination probably, and uh, also going back to that creativity class, it's like the human computer relationship. Because what was the first part of your question? It was about.
Do you think robots will take over the world?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Definitely open to being wrong, but I just don't. Yeah, I'm very bullish on humanity. And I think there's a lot we could achieve with robots. Um, but I am betting on that humans kind of remain dominant over robots.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like in a theoretical sense, I can imagine that happening. And Elon Musk has talked about the dangers of AI, unrestrained, and
Mhm.
that was the first time I ever thought, like, man, that would actually be really terrifying if we lived like the movie Terminator. I'm sure you've seen it, where
Actually,
just
not, but
you
yeah.
never seen Terminator? Oh, you need to watch it. It's really good. They're from the '80s, but they're good movies.
Okay.
That's cool. And I just wanted to pick your brain on that a little bit.
I mean, I've uh, sort of diverted energy resources away from AI the past couple of years. So I'm not the expert, but that's just my unrefined thoughts.
Next question is, if you could orange pill anybody, celebrity, famous person, who would you pick?
Well, I mean, I would probably, well, I guess I also kind of agree with, again, back to Jeff Booth. Sometimes I don't love the term orange pill because I don't want to force something onto someone else. But I would hope like uh, like people who, clean our buildings at school, or the, person who I see checking out at the grocery store, or kind of all of those really hardworking people that, um, maybe they only, their exposure to Bitcoin is just, oh, it's a scam, it's this, it's that. Um, I think I would just want to share it with people who, you know, really work hard in there every day. Not that famous people don't, but just the people that I think it would resonate with and who might not otherwise get to hear about it, or have access to materials to learn about it.
I love that answer, and that I think really captures the like the a real Bitcoin essence, because the whole point of it is to be able to carry your value forward, and people don't understand how people don't understand just how hard they're getting hit with inflation and with money printing. And so I love that answer. I love that answer, actually. I think that's really wise. Um, so what are your plans now that you're going to graduate next week? So
Yeah.
what's graduated Ella Huff going to be up to?
Well, first, I'm going to the Bitcoin conference. We are doing another big student ticket there. The Bitcoin conference is kindly sponsoring a free ticket, the festival pass for students. And so I'll be there. And then I will be going to Kenya for a couple months to work with the Gridless team at one of their sites. And then I will be starting full time at Galaxy on their research team.
What is Galaxy? I heard you mention it on another podcast, and I tried looking them up, but I don't really fully understand what they do.
Well, they are a publicly traded company in Canada, so they should have been able to pop up. But they have their headquarters are in New York City. They do a ton of I did an internship there earlier this year, last summer, I guess time flies. And one of our kind of lunch and learn coffee chats, someone described it as a hive mind. And so, often you have kind of a company that does like asset management, or an investment banking company, or Bitcoin mining, or research, or sales and trading, or, all of these different units that normally are separate. But Galaxy has them all. And so they cover a lot of different topics and spaces. I will be focused on all things Bitcoin. But they, have lots of different teams, and I think they have 8 offices in total, and there's about 500, 600 people. Um, but I'll get to work with Alex Thorne, and his great research team, and kind of all things Bitcoin, maybe some energy, and power research as well, but really get to think and learn.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're going to be in Vegas. That's cool. I do not get to go this year, but I have some friends going. The organization that we run here, Pacific Northwest Bitcoin, we do like meetups and events and
Yeah.
different community things and teach free classes on Bitcoin. And so there's a bunch of us, them going, and I'm kind of bummed out because it looks like it's going to be really fun.
Next year.
Yeah, next year, which I don't know where it is, but I'm gonna go no matter what. Um, so do you speak any other languages?
Well, it's gone downhill, but I took French from kindergarten to ninth grade, no, 10th grade. And then I took Chinese from 11th through my first year of college. And now I just have not used it. But I hope post-college I can get it back, because it really makes my brain, sort of like with Bitcoin, feel like it kind of comes alive and I'm connecting, new ideas and information.
Yeah, because I've heard you mention on another podcast that you've traveled a lot growing up. So where are some of the places that you've been able to visit?
Yes, I am very grateful that I have been able to travel. I think you learn a ton from it, and I think it also really helps as a person kind of gain confidence and just really figure out more who you are, what you care about. Actually, last week or 2 weeks ago, Japan was my 21st country, which is kind of a cool country for it to be, just their long history with Bitcoin. My first, I think Tanzania, I've been a couple times, and I really loved that. And I also loved China. I would go back in a heartbeat if I could.
So I mean, right now they talk, the United States is kind of going back and forth with China over tariffs and things like that. What do you think is the common perception about Americans to the average Chinese citizen, based on your experience?
Yeah, so when I was there, in our English class, we wrote this essay, and I forget what the exact prompt was, but in it, I wrote a sentence about how distance often exaggerates differences. And when I was getting ready to go to China, most people in my life said, Ella, this is a bad decision. Why are you doing this? It's so far away. It's all so different. And I felt strongly that it's like a 1 hour sleep or one sleep and a couple movies, and then I'll be there. It's not that far. And I'm not going to be scared of something that I can't identify. And I got there, and really, my host family played country music, like the same music that I would listen to growing up. My host sisters would run to the door to greet my host dad when he would come home. There was outside of them not drinking coffee, there was a lot of similarities. Um, and I would say when I was there, I never had a bad stereotype of, oh, they're the American, they do this or that. Um, I think humans all over the world have a lot more in common than media will give credit for because, that doesn't really sell. It's not a very clickbait headline. And often people just get stereotyped up to their country's leadership. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have a great answer for you of what is something that a Chinese person would think about an American. Yeah, I'll have to think on it, but I would just say on the whole, um, it's much more similarities than differences.
Sure. Yeah, people everywhere are just trying to survive. They want to raise their families. They want the freedom to be able to put food on the table. And we forget all that stuff when we just watch the news and think about, associate conflate the people with government decisions. And I
Yeah.
think that's a mistake.
I just had one pop into mind. It's more on the education system. In China, it's very much this is what you're being taught. It's much more memorization based, less critical thinking based. And so I think maybe that was one thing that would come up, when my host sister would be doing her homework or just topics about school. Um, I think that's a pretty clear difference in between, especially applying to colleges. In China, it's very much the kind of standardized testing based. What is your score? There's no like essay necessarily that you write that can really get you into a good school. Um, it's more rigid, I would say, in that sense. So there's one difference.
Yeah, well, I mean, just traveling and you pick up all these different things, and it really just kind of shapes your mind and how you think when you come back. You bring back these experiences with you to where you live. And yeah, I haven't been to 21 countries, so I'm a little jealous. I've been to seven, which is, still pretty good. But yeah, all those experiences, they shape you, and they sort of color in and give you a more robust view of the world. So, well, where can people find you, Ella?
Twitter's probably the best place. It's just 21 for the 21st. And if you're a student or anyone, happy to set up some time to chat. And if you are interested in being involved with Bitcoin Students Network, would be very glad to have you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure, and just yeah, best of luck next week, and this starting this new chapter.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Really great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.